Hello and welcome to the pod. I'm Nathan Fink.
I'm Jasmine Torres-Allen, and this is New Hampshire Family Now,
a show about building family in the Granite State. Today in the podcast, guest co-host and Director of Child Family Services at Community Action Partners of Stafford County and co-founder of Black Lives Matter Seacoast, Tanisha Johnson, helps me wrestle with the concept of belonging. And later, award-winning business leader, advocate, and entrepreneur Flo Nicolas joins the show to talk about the intersection of identity and community. New Hampshire Family Now is brought to you by the New Hampshire Charitable Foundation. Since 1962, the Charitable Foundation has worked hand in hand with generous and visionary citizens to maximize the power of giving and support, collaborate, and lead innovative initiatives. Initiatives like New Hampshire Tomorrow, which is focused on making sure children and families have access to education, healthcare, and career pathways to ensure every family member thrives. To learn more about New Hampshire Charitable Foundation and all their initiatives, go to www.nhcf.org. This podcast was also brought to you by Family Support New Hampshire. Family Support New Hampshire is NH's coalition of family resource centers and family strengthening programs that exist to ensure Granite State families have access to resources so both caregivers and children can succeed, because supported families are strong families. To find a family resource center near you, visit www.fsnh.org. Hello and welcome to the podcast. Jasmine Torres-Allen is off this week, and in her stead, I'm pleased to welcome Director of Child Family Services at Community Action Partners of Stafford County, Black Lives Matter Seacoast co-founder, early childhood advocate, adjunct professor, mother, and now co-host Tanisha Johnson.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. That was one good intro.
Also, welcome to my home, by the way.
I know. I love it here. It's beautiful.
The boys are in the background, so I know we'll probably have to do a couple of takes. Mm-hmm. How's the family? I know you have an 11 and a 17-year-old?
My 17-year-old daughter, we're getting ready to do college. Mm-hmm. So she's in the mode of waiting for all the letters to come through.
All right.
I'm waiting for all the money to come through.
Right.
So I'm looking at these letters, I'm looking at tuition, and I'm going, girl, I don't know where you're going. Right. So I have that aspect, and she's 17. She's at that point where it's like, I've raised her, she's done with me, but I have to remind her, like, you still live here. You still are in high school. You still have a curfew. And I've raised her to be so independent because It's always been me and her. Always, right? When you raise an independent daughter, it comes back. Like, it comes back because she's like, Mom, what do you mean? I have a job. I save my money. My grades are good.
So first of all, both of those ages strike me as being transitional. But then I think, look, every age is transitional. Like, I'm going through some things myself. But what is it like being a caregiver, looking at the precipice of really everything that you put into it? I mean, that's you. You raised an independent child purposefully.
Yes.
This is also kind of the coup de grace of what you wanted.
Yes. There's moments where I'm like, I did this too well. Because now I have to like rein her back in, right? So there's moments where she's like, she'll just walk out the door on a Saturday. And I have to text her and be like, what are you doing? And she's like, oh, I'm going out. No. I need to know where. I need to know with who. And she's like, Mom, I know there's no drugs. There's no drinking. My curfew's at 11. My location's on. I've done the chores you asked me to do.
Right.
So then I sit there and I'm like, well, I guess I have no response. Right. Because there's nothing to say.
Have you tried Munchausen syndrome?
No. Okay. Should I try it?
No. This is actually, I just wanted to check. But the 11-year-old.
My 11-year-old, he is my sensitive child. He is total opposite of Sanaya. So I have total independent to total needy. He's also in this transitional phase of becoming boy to young man, so to speak, starting to smell. Yeah. Like those reminders of like, is it the hormones?
It's a lot.
He's also he has severe ADHD. His processing speed is behind, but so he's on an IEP. He's my sensory child. Right. He's also sensitive. So he's my one that we actually do sit and watch Golden Girls together, and we sit and watch the cooking shows together. Good. And then we also sit and watch wrestling together. So It's like
range. Oh my God.
I know. We like sit and watch it all. but he's my snuggle bug, right?
Yeah.
But he's also starting to get those hormones. So now it's like, I'll snuggle mom, but you only get 20 minutes.
Yeah. That's interesting because transitional phases, right? And I don't know what it is with me lately. Like, is it solar flares or is it that Mercury is in like retrograding like a boss, but something's happening here. I've been thinking a lot about places and spaces lately, and with the boys growing, and then myself, I've been thinking about this concept of belonging a lot. It's something I think that we as parents want for obviously our children, but us as like community members, we talk about this quite a bit. But there's part of me that says, I don't think we understand this thing. And so I wanted to ask you, and this is obviously a little bit deeper than what we said, when I say belonging, what does it mean to you? Like, what is belonging to you?
So belonging has a couple of different meanings to me. There's like my personal thought of what belonging is, which maybe they're the same, but that whole ability to be just Tanisha in every space I go to, the ability to not have to adjust, to not have to change from professional Tanisha with the office clothes and who's the director to BLM Tanisha. So being extra pro-Black to being the advocate to being the activist, right? That frame of mind and speaking to just chill, sitting at the table Tanisha. Those are 3 different Tanishas,
right? Which
speaks to the fact that none of those Tanishas belong together. They're me. Right? That's who I am as a person. But I'm not at spaces where all 3 of those are welcomed at one time. So that is where I'm like, do we get belonging and inclusivity? Absolutely. Are we doing it at all spaces? No. Right. Does it need to be at all spaces?
Yeah.
Not sure. Because chill Tanisha probably should not be at work.
Right.
But like, why not? Like, what systems have we built in terms of patriarchy, in terms of supremacy, in terms of power and privilege, and all of that to say that chill Tanisha is still not boss Tanisha? So like, that's when I think about belonging from a personal level. We've made ourselves as people, not even based on race or culture, but as people, we've created compartments of ourselves because we can't bring certain aspects of ourselves to certain spaces. But community belonging may be a bit more broader in terms of, are we welcoming everyone in terms of class, in terms of gender, in terms of race and culture, religion, all of that? Or have we created a space where they're welcome and we can have them sit at the table, right? Because we've got the diversity down, right? But have we made it a welcoming space where they feel like their voice matters, where they can show up authentically in all of the things? Maybe. Yeah. Some people may have gotten it right, but it's not a global thing. So there's still that, but there's still that internal belonging that I'm like, even if I can show up authentically me, I'm not going to.
Interesting. Let me follow up on that because, and maybe it makes sense to go into what belonging is not.
So there's this concept of, everybody always says, I want to make a safe space. And I'm always like, don't say that, because my safe space is not your safe space, right? It's not the same. It could be, maybe, but chances are it's probably not the same exact meaning. So belonging is not creating a safe space, right? Belonging is creating a space where someone can show up authentically and can maybe put their guard down just slightly enough to be whoever they need to be. But belonging is not a true safe space because we don't know what people's safe spaces are. So you might create a table that welcomes me to it. It may not be safe for me, my own personal thoughts, right? So that's why I'm like, belonging is not that. Belonging is also not an us versus them. A lot of people feel like belonging is part of that. We're making a space for folks to elevate them, which we are, right? And to bring voice to those who haven't had a voice, right? And that value, but it's not to create a, I'm Black, you're white, so I'm making this belonging for you because you're Black, right? So, and not me because I'm white.
Right.
Like, that's not what it is either. And that's a huge confusion because folks are like, we're bringing everyone to the table, but me as a male or you as a white male still feels not valued because we have focused so much on others, which is great. We need to do that. I'm not knocking it. So please don't take my quote and post it all over and be like, BLM co-founder says raise the white voice. But what I'm saying is belonging is not us versus them. Belonging is how can we all sit at the table together and each voice is heard and welcomed and included and valued, right?
Right.
And authentic.
So as I'm kind of traipsing through my life. My boys are growing up. My wife and I are getting older, unfortunately. And when I look around, I think just how many people, community members, we need to function on a base level. And it's interesting because if we belong and we're received, that exchange of help and support flows freely.
Yes, it does.
But if I'm not received, if I'm othered, us and them'd, that flow doesn't go freely. In fact, it's burdensome. It's a handout.
Right. And that's not what belonging is. So that's where folks are like, all right, like organizations are so heavily focused on this DEIJ, DEIBJ, whatever we want to say, right? Because the letters are always changing now for some reason. And they get caught up in this, all right, we got the diversity down packed. We have all the different categories at the table. And then we're not even touching equity yet, right? So folks are still like, we don't even know what equity really is. But then they go to the inclusion and we're like, well, we have the pictures on the wall. We have the different books. We have the different curriculum by all types of folks, right? We have the pronouns down. We have all of that. And they're like, so we're inclusive. And it's like, no. And then it got to, well, you know what? Let's go deeper with inclusivity and then let's bring in belonging. And it was like, are they synonyms? Maybe, maybe not. Belonging is more of a feeling. That's
why I wanted to talk about it, because it's something that it's very distinct.
Our bodies know it.
Your bodies know it.
Yes.
You know it the moment you walk into a room, your follicles know it. I guess my question, and this is a question that I don't think we can answer, but how do we get there then? Like what is the mechanism by which we get closer?
You know what I always say? We have to get away from the kumbaya. The kumbaya, the circle, the holding hands, the singing songs together, like that may be what inclusion is, but it's not what belonging is, right? We got to get to you and I have uncomfortable conversations. We start talking about the things, the elephants in the room. We start talking about the things that are triggering, the things that bother us. And we start working through those, not in an effort to agree, right? Not in an effort to come to one solution,
right,
but in an effort to empathize, which is huge, right?
Right.
To hear each other, to say, oh, I understand you. I can't be in your shoes. I haven't felt that, right? No matter what it is, right? But I understand how you come to that conclusion. And now my mind is open. My mind is broader. My mind has a different lens to look through. Until we start doing that and empathizing.
Empathy is everything.
Everything. Down from a work power relationship, from boss to staff, down to peer to friendship, to relationships.
Right. Well, if we get to that place, those conversations we describe as difficult, you drop the word difficult and you just say conversation.
Ooh, yes.
But it seems like solution, again, isn't we have this kind of mentality where we're trying to check boxes. The idea is that this is never done. Empathy is never done. Empathy is constantly striving to know. You think?
No, I agree.
Yeah.
I do. I like that striving to know statement. I do. I might turn that into
you can have it.
Thank you.
See, this is what I'm
Tanisha
saying.
said it.
Tanisha said, actually, this recording is proof.
It's such a broad yet deep personal topic, right? And I think that's what it mainly is that we have to understand that belonging is not something you can train for. It's not something you can read all the books about, because it's an individualized feeling. You can't control whether I feel if I belong or not. You can create a space that you assume to be welcoming, to be inclusive, to be open in conversation and transparent. But you can't control whether I still feel like I belong there. And I think that's where people get that caught up of, but we're inclusive. Like, yeah, you are. But I may not still feel like I belong, but that's all on me. And whatever I need to do, work through, talk about, accept, triggers, environments, all of the things, right? Generational trauma, like.
Right. So that's when I reached out to you and I said the other day, I want to talk about belonging. And then there was that dead air for about what felt like 5 minutes. I was like,
I did. I was like, does he know who he's talking to? I was like, did he mean for me to come and talk about belonging? I was like, all right.
And when we come back, Flo Nicolas joins us. Don't go anywhere. Tanisha Johnson, take 1.
He's also in this transitional phase of becoming...
Hang on, just 1 second.
Hey, Lo.
I need a charger.
Here, let me help. Hold on 1 second.
You're fine.
Tanisha Johnson, take 2.
Right? Not in an effort to come to one solution, but in an effort to empathize.
Empathy.
Daddy, can you play with me?
I'm almost done with this, buddy. Tanisha Johnson, taking 3. What about it, though, that makes it so terrifying?
Because it's uncomfortable. We're in a stage where...
Hey,
Somebody called.
somebody called?
Yeah.
Okay. Hello? Today's episode was brought to you by Upreach Therapeutic Equestrian Center. Located in Goffstown, New Hampshire, Upreach partners with the power of horse to create strong children, strong families, and strong communities. To learn more about Upreach Therapeutic Equestrian Center and its many inspirational programs, visit upreachtec.org. That's upreachtec.org. Today's show was also brought to you by Burgoo Media, a full-service media company dedicated to helping nonprofits realize impact stories for print, video, social, and legacy media, and more. Both budget-conscious and grant-friendly, Burgoo Media helps your organization celebrate the humans in human services. Learn more at burgoomedia.com. Hey, it's Nathan, co-host of New Hampshire Family Now. I wanted to take a quick break from the show because it occurred to me the other day that I've never asked you to subscribe to this podcast. Subscribing is free, and when you do it, it helps our placement algorithms, making it that much easier for caregivers across New Hampshire to find valuable information and strategies for their families. Also, you'll be alerted when a new episode drops. And if you like the show, leaving a review helps us that much more. So go to wherever you get your podcast, type in New Hampshire Family Now, and as the kids say, smash that subscribe button. I say click it, because if you smash it, then you're going to need a new one. Thank you and enjoy today's podcast. Hello and welcome back to the podcast. Today on the show, I'm thrilled to be joined by Flo Nicolas, an award-winning business leader whose successes span legal affairs, corporate technology, operations, business intelligence, entrepreneurship, and tech startups. And Flo is the 2024 NH200 award recipient for NH Business Review. Flo, congratulations and welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you so much. I truly appreciate it. I always, when people are reading off my my resume, essentially, I'm always like, are they talking about me? Oh yeah, it is me.
Yeah, well, it makes me nervous to read it because it's not talking about me, I'll tell you what. So I know this might be TMI, but I reached out to you and I recalled a LinkedIn post that you wrote about that very award, NH200, and that it caught you by surprise. And, that you could have used a little good news. And when I read your bio, like you just heard, I think there's no possible way a person like you can be without wind in your sails.
Yeah, it's been really a kind of a tough journey despite, reading off the accolades, right? It's been what you're reading off is not things that were accomplished overnight, and it's not things that were accomplished easily. There was some tears, there was some laughter, anger, frustration, moments of, I want to give up. I don't know if I can do this. It's been a tough journey, but I think for me, when I feel like I can't make it to the finish line, I always try to remind myself of, my parents coming here from Africa and leaving everything behind and starting a new life here in America. And now, being both very successful people, put themselves through school. So I think about what they had to go through, their challenges, and right there is a wake-up call, right? You then all of a sudden feel like, okay, my situation is not as bad, right? But yeah, I think for me, that's where the surprise was, because it was just, when you look at the list of other people that have this designation and recognition.
Yeah.
Sometimes you feel a little imposter syndrome, although I don't like saying that word, but yeah, you feel a little like, do I belong here? And I think for me, it's that constant, really reassuring myself that you are deserving, you are worthy, you belong on this list.
Yeah, I'm so glad you brought that up because, personally, I've never fancied myself as a person who cares about being acknowledged, and even more so now that I'm a parent and a caregiver, right? Because you don't do it for those reasons. But I'm starting to think it's less to me about being acknowledged and more about being seen. How has the concept of being seen played against your own life?
I think it's more than just being seen. Right? People can see you and still not have the deeper understanding of who you are. People can see you and still not value, what you bring to the table. So being seen for me is a lot deeper. And it starts with seeing myself. Before people can see me, I have to see me, right? And I'm always reminded, and I say this a lot, by what I heard Oprah say, which is the way you project yourself to the world is how they receive you. So if you're projecting yourself as insecure, I'm not worthy, I don't deserve to be seen, and then that's what they're going to receive. So for me, being seen is you've got to recognize who you are, be able to articulate who you are, and to make sure that people really value what you're bringing to the table, right? And it's not just about seeing you. It's also about, compensating you your worth. It's about providing you with opportunities and being able to have a seat at the table, right? But it's not just sitting at the table and being a bench warmer, is what I normally say, but being empowered to have influence, and being empowered to make change, which is tangible and measurable. And to me, that's what being seen. But again, it starts with me,
right?
Because I'm the captain of my ship. So I've got to navigate,
right,
how I want to be seen.
Right. And it feels like, we started this with this award and the idea of imposter syndrome. And I agree with you. Like, I'm not a fan of the phrase, but I understand it deeply. So I'm curious then, when you embrace that idea of being seen and then you look in the mirror and say, no, this is who I am, but there is that voice there where it's kind of like, yeah, but is it? How do you navigate that space?
I think the best way to navigate it is to acknowledge that is you are okay with being imperfect. Perfectly imperfect is, I have a couple of shirts in my closet that say this, right? I think we have this idea that we're going to know everything. We're going to be able to do everything. And we're just going to show up every single time as our best. And the reality is those are ambitious goals, which I believe are unrealistic. We are not always going to be at our best. We're not always going to be the smartest person in the room. And that's okay. We will be handed a project where we are not going to know everything. We're not even going to know how to start. But I think acknowledging what you don't know is better than trying to fake it until you make it. Because at the end of the day, you can fake it, but then the energy that you have to put in to keep up with that is going to be stressful and detrimental to your health. So for me, it's one of those things where at this point, I've got to understand that I sometimes show up and I'm like, man, I completely screwed that. But then you learn, right? It's a process of learning and growing, and it's constant. We're constantly evolving. And to me, that is the best thing ever. And it's funny because I am very raw and I'm very authentic. And I'm very like, hey, sometimes I have failures. Sometimes I hit rock bottom. And people will be like, oh my God, I can't believe you share how you hit rock bottom or you fail. And I'm like, why? Why can't you believe that? I'm a human being. That's what happens. And I think that's what we have to recognize is the fact that we're not robots.
That's right. I'm a big Dwayne Wade fan. And he used to have this saying, it's all about how you get up, because you're going to be down there again. And you said something that struck me that I'm like, oh my gosh, you know what? This is about being receptive. You know what I mean? Like, this is about walking in and being receptive. And I think these are great concepts. And then all of a sudden I'm in this place where I'm like, wait a minute, I'm a dad, I'm a parent. And these are concepts that I have come across now that I'm in my mid 40s. But I look at my kids, and I know you have kids too. And I want to ask you, how do you teach kids in your care about those things so they can then go out and be their authentic self?
I mean, that's a fantastic question, because right now as parents, we're dealing with social media, right? We're dealing with kids who are exposed to things that, I was outside eating sand. Right? They're making sand cakes. These kids are on the internet learning all sorts of things and being exposed to a lot. And one of the things, as someone in tech, I look at the impact of social media. And, some of these kids are being shown things where they're supposed to be looking a certain way, and just the pressure of trying to fit in and be cool and all this stuff can really have an impact off how they show up, how I want to belong. Right. These children want to belong. They don't want to go to school and show up and have, be bullied for how they dress. And one of the things I've always done, and with my husband, we've taught our kids early, it's not about what you wear, whether it says Nike or whether you got it at Walmart or Target. Those are not things that define you as a person. How you treat another person, that's important. Not the $200 Jordans, not saying anything wrong about that, but just letting them know it's who you are as a person, and to not be ashamed of who you are. I have a daughter who's neurodivergent. She has ADHD on the autism spectrum, and I am so envious of her because she knows who she is. I mean, she wears things that mismatch. And half the time, at first I started saying, oh my God, this color is not matching with that. And she's like, but it matches to me. And then my husband said, so what? You just let her wear what she wants to wear. And she's just freely expressive and proudly does it without a care. But the one thing I will tell you that I'm really impressed with, that I got an email from her school, from her principal, there was someone else being bullied. And she stood up for them. And I said that this is what we teach our kids in our house. And not only do you stand up for yourself, you also make sure you look out for others and you speak up for them when they might not have a voice. You be that voice for them. And for us, these are the kids that we're raising who are authentic, are free to be themselves, and are not worried about any societal labels. They choose who they want to be, and we're going to promote that.
Is a perfect example of the idea that you do have, community can start at home, but it also exists outside your walls. You get a call from the school, part of your community, right? You get a call from maybe a childcare center, part of the community, a pediatrician, part of the community. And I keep thinking about this idea, I half the time don't even know how to raise myself. Yet again, I'm in a position of raising others, and I acknowledge it takes community. So I'm curious, with that in mind, how do you then go about building your immediate community in a way that embraces your daughter, that embraces your other child? How do you do that?
Yeah, I think for us, it's really about creating a positive environment and having good role models, people who you can look to, who are going to say, listen, this is how I did it, and I did it wrong. And here's the wisdom I'm going to share upon you so you can choose the right path.
Right.
And for us, I'm very fortunate that my mother lives close by. She's very involved with, picking up the kids when we need help, especially, my older daughter. She's the one who takes her to school, picks her up, and we tag team. Where it's like a wrestling match. And I'll call my mom and say, listen, this is what's going on. I need your help. We've gotta, school her, for lack of a better word. We've got to let her know that the choices that she has made are not the right choice. And so my mom, will say, listen, I got you. I'm going to have a conversation with her. Right now we're dealing with college. Right. And thinking to the future and college and, where she wants to go to college. And so, that having that support, where she has people she can trust and people whose recommendations that, she can respect and value is so crucial. And it also goes, for me, I'm a very hands-on parent. I'm at schools, being involved, telling them, hey, if anything happens, let me know immediately, not 2, 3, 4 months later, but immediately. And I'll be there. And just really staying focused. And also for me, the good support system of friends who I feel like are an extension of family, who again, also are people who can have positive influence and be role models. And like you mentioned earlier, it's like, raising kids these days, it's like a collective effort. It could be a coach, it could be something else. They have all these different people that enter into their lives. And as parents, we need to ensure that the people who are entering our kids' life are going to add value.
We started this conversation with talking about kind of aspects of our identity, how when we look in the mirror, the thing that we see or that we aspire to see. And sometimes those things are great because they cross over. And I keep thinking about your kids' team, your team out there in the community. And I mean, desperately for my kids, I want one of their identities to be community member, community advocate, community organizer, because I want them to feel place and space. And so I wanted to ask you, when you look back at your life with regards to places and spaces, what do you see? And then walking forward, how do you see something either similar or different for your own children?
Yeah. So growing up, I was the only child between my mom and dad, and they were immigrants. They came here. So my childhood was, most of the time I was like essentially by myself or, with the childcare. So because they were working full time and going to school full time. So I didn't really know that sense of community. I think now as an adult, to be honest, is when I found my sense of community, belonging, and being a community advocate right now, being on several boards, and really my mission right now, because someone once said, what's your legacy? When you are not here anymore, what do you want people to remember you as? And right now, my focus is on building that legacy of this person who's been out in the community, advocating for diversity, equity, inclusion, advocating for equal access to STEM education and resources, having teamed up with organizations and universities like UNH, Franklin Pierce, and putting together events, bringing community organizations together for the purpose of equality for our state. Guess what I do now? I bring my kids, right? I bring my kids to those events. My kids proudly go to school and say, my mom does this and she does that. But I bring them. On MLK Day, we went up to Rochester, New Hampshire, because they were having a day of service. And I brought my 16-year-old and my 11-year-old because I want them to be engaged. I want them to participate. I want them to know that, what they put into their community, is added value, which has an impact not only on them, but our state as a whole. So what I might not have had when I was a child is what I'm ensuring that my kids now have access to, understand this, their civic duty, their right to vote, and their right to go apply and sit on boards and take action. Don't just complain in your house behind closed doors, but get out of the house and go take action, and be the voice, feel empowered, engage, activate, be a gladiator, right? Incite other people to join your movements. And my daughter, the 16-year-old, she has friends who are in the LGBTQ plus community. She loves supporting her friends. And, I have another child who loves STEM. So she loves going to, STEM events with me. So for me, it's really important that as an advocate, that what I'm passing on as I'm creating my own legacy is I'm passing the torch. I'm passing the torch to my kids.
Now, Flo, I am certain people are going to want to hear more from you. Where can they go if they want to? LinkedIn is my number one spot. That is my platform on social media. So definitely look me up, Flo Nicolas. And other than that, I'm constantly in the community. I serve on several boards. So it's hard to miss me. And if you've missed me, then that means I have more work to do to ensure that you can find me. Well, Flo, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you so much for coming on the show.
My pleasure. Thank you.
This podcast was brought to you by Nixon Peabody, who delivers exceptional legal services for clients in the community by combining high performance, an entrepreneurial spirit, deep engagement, and an unwavering commitment to a culture of collaboration, diversity, and humanity. Nixon Peabody works with universities, hospitals, and nonprofits of every size to maximize impact. For more information, visit nixonpeabody.com. Many thanks to the Samuel P. Hunt Foundation for sponsoring this podcast. Established in 1951, Samuel P. Hunt Foundation is a Manchester-based, independent nonprofit that provides grants primarily for the arts, children and youth services, faith-based organizations, educational institutions, healthcare, and human services. New Hampshire Family Now is listed on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Google Podcasts, Amazon Music, Stitcher, iHeartRadio, and more. Listen wherever you get your podcasts or ask your smart speaker to play New Hampshire Family Now.